Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Hello, everyone. So you want to build Mr. House, the president and CEO.
You strike me as a gambling man.
Going for the gimmick of rolling dice, so there's going to be a little bit of inconsistency. To fix that problem, you could also be playing a treasure theme, because whenever you spend treasure with its bottom ability, you get to roll additional dice. I was left in this weird position. I built this as a budget deck at first. It came out to be like $130, but it was incredibly inconsistent. It was kind of driving me nuts. Normally, I rarely build these because people can't really afford them, but I guess you could always proxy stuff, or if you do have a lot of money invested in your collection, I would say this is a great deck for playing with your casual friends because, like I mentioned earlier, there is the gimmick of probability and rolling dice, so you're not going to consistently get what you want. I'm just going to go on and talking about the cards themselves and then talk about some of the things I've discovered in the deck construction. Barbarian class. This essentially lets you roll an additional die and ignore your lowest one. So you are chasing specifically 4 or higher, so you get to replace your treasure investment with a new treasure. That's why it's super good. Dispatch, it's removal, and if you have Metalcraft, which you should because you're doing the treasure theme. The reason why you want to supplement the treasure theme more than the dice theme is there are so few cards in Magic's history that care about dice rolling. So to fix that problem, you lean heavier towards the treasure and the artifact theme. Light and Tutor lets you get any artifact or enchantment. Your best card to tutor with this is probably either your token doublers or Smothering Tithe. If you have one or the other, get the other piece to fix your problems. That's the other part about this deck is it's a puzzle deck where you need multiple things in play for it to function.
Some assembly required.
That's also partially why this is a very casual deck despite its very expensive price tag. I could talk about all the removal pieces and all of the ramp and all of the card advantage, but most of those are just to fulfill deck counts. Everyone, I feel like, knows what Boros and Arcane Signet do, so I don't feel the need to talk about those. And then I'll also include the deck list below, so you could individually look at these yourself. Take a look at those packages. Just let it be known that I typically have 10 plus ramp, I typically have 10 plus removal, and I typically have 10 plus card advantage, and they're all efficiently costed. I prefer things to be cheap, like 2 mana or less, and then every time I spend a mana more, I'm either getting that resource to match. So like, I think I run stuff like Cut a Deal in this deck, meaning you're investing 3 mana, but you're getting 3 cards back. As you scale up in mana, you're getting more. That's all I have to harp on in terms of when you're picking and choosing those kinds of cards. Just be conscientious of how you spend your mana. The Dockside Extortionist is just a too low of a hanging fruit to ignore. Because the dice rolling mechanic is so underdeveloped and kind of weak, I unfortunately had to put very expensive cards in this deck, and then at that point I was like, might as well make everything expensive, and I didn't hold anything back in terms of everything. Illusionist Bracers lets you double activated abilities. This does indeed work with Mr. House when you tap 4 mana and tap him to make more tokens. This will see your treasure investment that you made into that ability, and it'll just transfer over into the copy. Lortho for treasure synergy. Sting, the Glinting Dagger. If you are making an excess of treasure and you've been stockpiling them, this enables you to use them more efficiently because on everybody's turn you untap your Mr. House, you get another chance to invest 4 mana, make a bunch of dudes, and more treasure on everybody's turn. Will Blade of the Frontiers. This functions like Barbarian class in that it lets you roll additional dice to ignore the lowest one. Drum Bellower untaps all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So it functions like Sting, but it's slightly better in that it lets you untap your entire board. Jan Jansen, the Chaos Crafter. If you make a body with Mr. House, it's much easier to sack it to Jan Jansen to make more treasures, and they kind of just do this loop into each other. That fits quite nicely. Low shields in the deck. Main win conditions, making a bunch of 3/3s. This prevents damage from being dealt to your attacking artifact creatures and lets you cantrip every time you make an artifact. Hopefully you could pair it up with something like Drum Bellower and be making artifacts on everybody's turn. He also combos well with a lot of your other stuff like Lortho, because The chance of someone playing their second spell each turn to make a treasure token, it's pretty darn good. Monologue tax as well. These pair up nicely with low shield. Patriarch Seal, I like this. Not only does it tap for mana, but it also untaps a legendary creature. It's a very dense card. You could run things like Manifold Key and Voltaic Key, but I was finding in the early game it was a little clunky because I didn't have the resources to take advantage of it. So I instead opted for Patriarch Seal because it does something outside of just untapping in case you don't have that option available to you. Professional Facebreaker. The dream is to attack everybody with your robots and then make at least 3 every combat. Facebreaker was an easy choice. Prosperous Partnership lets you tap 3 untapped creatures to create treasure tokens. If you have token doubler or tripler, this could be the combo piece for making a very long turn. Sonic Screwdriver, it's just a slightly better version than Patriarch Seal. Vexing Puzzle Box, whenever you roll dice, you get to put counters on this, and then you can remove 100 to search for an artifact and put it on the battlefield. It also generates mana and lets you roll a d20. Rolling d20s in particular are really strong because Mr. House doesn't care what kind of die you roll. So you officially increase your odds of rolling a 4 or higher. I included a fair amount of d20 rollers. I didn't include them all because a lot of them kind of sucked. I'm not going to throw in a 4-drop creature just so I could roll a 20 die and only do it once a turn. I never played it personally, so I want to give it a try. White Plume Adventurer, you take the initiative. Holding on to initiative should be easy, or at least getting it back should be easy because you're going to be making a lot of 3/3 tokens. It's good at every stage of the game. Even if you haven't completed a dungeon, you still get to untap Mr. House and keep doing the thing. If you do complete a dungeon, then you get to untap all your creatures. So it's like a Seedborn Muse in a way. Zorn, whenever you would create one or more treasures, you instead create that many +1. On our 4-drops, we have a Chromosoul. It's just a nice finisher to kill people if you have a board that's big enough. Benny Brack's Zoologist functions like low shield. Every time you make a token, on end step you get to draw a card. Grim Hireling functions like Facebreaker, only has a little bit of a removal aspect and that you could sack X treasures to give something -X/-X. Mirkwood Bats, I could have included more that fit the category of aristocrats, but I didn't want to lean in too heavily into it. I made an exception for Mirkwood Bats because it triggers on ETB and on exit, so it's a very dense card, unlike Zulaport Cutthroat, which only triggers on creatures and it only triggers once. It's just a little dense for the exchange of cost. Sun's Vanguard, this is just a card advantage piece that also makes your attacking tokens have double strikes. It's both a threatening piece and a card advantage piece. Roaming Throne, you will officially be doubling his upper half ability. It's quite nice. He's also a human. You have a fair amount of humans in this deck that you could take advantage of. Like Pitiless Plunder was one of those. If you're ever in a deck with white, you end up just inherently playing with a lot of humans because they're most popular and common creature type in the game. Short on the Scalds was talking about earlier. The mana investment fits the card advantage quantity quite nicely. I love impulse effects. I like this one a lot too because it also lets you size up your board. Unwinding Clock, because Mr. House is also an artifact. You also make treasures that come in tap, so this will help you fix that problem as well. Running Goldspan Dragon, so Mr. President, it cares about mana produced from treasure. It doesn't say you have to spend that exact quantity. So like if you have Goldspan in play, you'll invest 2, you'll still get to roll 5 dice. So it cuts your costs in half. It's really good in this deck. If you didn't think about like what Goldspan can do for Mr. House, I would say Goldspan's like your VP.
No.
Revel in Riches, it's a win condition because you're going to be making so many treasures. You could just passively bank a bunch and then go to upkeep and win the game. Ancient Copper Dragon, not only is it a d20 roller, but it can make you a ton of treasures. So this guy is pretty dense. Maybe this is your Secretary of Treasury. In terms of a democracy, it just does everything that you want to do for Mr. House. Marionette Master is another win condition. Whenever an artifact you control is put in the graveyard, that includes your treasures. You get to drain people for 4 life. If you have enough treasures in play, this might be a game ender. True Conviction, this is another finisher, kind of like Nyla's Sun's Vanguard. It gives all your creatures double strike and lifelink. Cavern Horde Dragon, I love the cost reduction based on the number of artifacts opponents control. It has the unholy trifecta of flying, trample, and haste. Keep in mind the word haste because I've seen people play this thing and forget that it has haste and then they don't attack with it. Take advantage of your stuff. Fits quite nicely in the deck. And then I have my land package over here. I absolutely despise tapped lands, especially when you're not playing on a budget. There's no reason to be playing tapped lands. I have everything that you need over here. I would say 3/4 of the budget is just in your mana base. If you wanted to adjust this and play with tapped lands, I'd probably save a ton of money. I think if you follow like my budget guides and you did that, you could probably invest $50 into lands and then you'd be playing with a $700 deck instead, if that's something you're interested in. I'm not going to talk about the lands because they're purely in here for just fixing purposes. That's the deck. I hope you enjoyed. If you stayed this long, clearly you liked what you saw. Subscribe because I'm going to be making more deck tech videos, and I do plenty of other things other than deck techs. I do gameplay stuff. I normally feature the decks I build on the channel on Moto, but because Fallout isn't on Moto, I can't do that, which was also part of my reasoning for deciding to build an unbudgetized deck. It's probably just going to be for me in paper to play. I do own these cards. I think this would be good for playing in casual settings without producing a field ad. I also do spoiler reviews. I'm going to do Thunder Junction, start the 26th. That's all I have to say. Everyone take care now. Bye.